Stephanie Arne, she's been a friend of ours for a few years, ever since she took on this title of Wild Guide for Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom.
She hosts a web series featuring all sorts of different animals, but lately you might have seen her on a different kind of show, Tiny House, Big Living.
And her tiny house is right outside our studio today in the Morning Blends. Kayla Thomas is standing by to give us a little bit of a tour. Kayla, where are you at?
Hi guys, I'm in the bedroom. Can't you tell? This is the loft bedroom. Hey, there's a closet up here too. I don't know that I've ever done a live shot from anybody's bedroom before. It's a little bit personal, but hey, I'm one of about 12,000 people who has taken the tour of this tiny house, and I'm about to give you guys a tour and find out basically how a love of animals led to a tiny house lifestyle. Okay, so while I climb down very carefully, Stephanie, come on over and grab the microphone for me. Oh. Or Tim. So she's holding the microphone up for me. This is very safe, you guys. It's like a little tiny staircase. And I have already climbed up and down this a couple times today in heels. So this is the house. Here's the couple that lives in it. This is Stephanie Arne, Tim Davison, Midwest kids who met in an unusual way that we'll talk about in just a minute. But first, a tiny house. How exactly did this happen?
Oh, well, really, we've loved animals our whole life, and so we've been working in wildlife conservation at zoos and rescues all over the planet. Tim actually worked with Wildlife Encounters with Kip and Stacy.
We love them.
And so he traveled all over the country teaching people about exotic animals. And then I was working in Africa and Papua New Guinea and Australia and New Zealand. And I was seeing that a lot of the issues that the animals were dealing with had to do with consumerism. So we were struggling with, a lot of the time, it was pollution or some of the ingredients that we were taking from the rainforest in a non-sustainable way. And I was like, whoa, so wait, all these animals I love and the ecology is being messed up because of something that I'm doing. And so I tried not to be too hard on myself, but over the next few years, I was like, what can I do? And I started just trying to be more sustainable with my lifestyle. And then Tim and I had met actually in the Wild Kingdom contest, so I won. And we
Tim, you won too, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm the winner here. Yeah, let's not get this wrong. Yeah, I won.
And since then, we've been trying to figure out how we can combine our powers. We love teaching, we love doing video, and we love traveling. And so what can we do to put all that together? Somehow we decided to go on tour, and this became our tour bus. And it was all to teach at universities and zoos and museums and schools all over the country, because America is actually the most wasteful country on the planet. And I, as a very competitive person, I can't stand that. So I'm like, we got to do something about it and be very grassrooty about it, right? So let's see how many cities we can go to and just speak to everyday normal Americans about what they're passionate about and what they're willing to do to make a difference for those animals that are not only in Australia and Africa and in the ocean, but also here in our own communities. So that's what kind of motivated this.
Okay, so they take this house out on the road. You can see it in a couple days, and I'll tell you where. But first, I know all of you back home are dying for a tour. Of course, tiny house is a big deal. We're actually going to start in the bathroom because it's right back behind us, and that way we don't have to turn around. So go ahead, Mike. I'll let you go first. Mike Wallace behind the camera today. So if you're wondering what the bathroom looks like in a tiny house, here you go. They've got a toilet back here. The sink, actually, they did a really neat job using kind of some repurposed and reclaimed items here to really walk the talk. And then a shower, which has a little bit less shower pressure than most of us might be used to. But hey, it certainly serves its purpose. You'll see a lot of artwork throughout here. So take a look. Tim actually has an art studio in here. So he's got his easel basically attached to the wall. He can pull it out. Art supplies. And Tim, can you come over? You got to show the secret compartment. Because I think one of the things that a lot of people like about tiny houses is kind of these nooks and crannies. So Mike, switch spaces because we're going to look right up here.
Yeah, so I'm going to sneak past you. So something that I really missed, like you alluded to before, I worked with Kip and Stacy, so I traveled all around the country with animals, and something that I really missed was being able to paint and have a studio ready to go. But traveling around with the animals, I never had one of these, so having storage right here is awesome. So I have extra paint here, extra paint over there, all the brushes set up, so whenever I can carve out an hour or two of time, I can sit down at the easel and paint. So it's nice to have it ready to go, and everything locks down. I can have it up all the time, even when we travel down the road. So usually it's like midnight before I get to paint.
We're going to get to what's in here in just a second because we couldn't leave that out. Tim actually done this artwork on the wall here. You see the beautiful picture of the earth, the globe, kind of the whole idea of why they're doing this. They've got living room space here. If you come on over, workspace here, they can work on their video editing. You can see all the camera gear. We got a drone, more artwork, and then sliding over into the kitchen. Stephanie, why don't you tell us about some of the challenges and some of the awesome things about the kitchen?
Okay, so I would say the hardest thing right away was actually the refrigerator. So I think we need a redesign of the refrigerator because of how much food waste. Think of how much we go shopping and we fill up a refrigerator and then we forget the things tucked in the back. So we're like, well, let's challenge ourselves and get a small refrigerator. And oh my goodness, that was so difficult for the longest time because there's so many ingredients on a lot of things. So we've had to completely adjust our menu on a weekly basis so that we could live with this. But now we don't really notice any difference. But it was hard at first. We do have a stove on the top, a burner stove. It's totally fine. I love our really deep sink. It stores dishes, which we don't have a whole lot at all, but also it serves the purpose of Tim when he's cleaning out brushes and everything, which is helpful. But as you may have noticed, there's a cutting board over it as well. So we try to get as much counter space as possible.
Well, and this has to drive down the road. They're touring the whole country in this. So something else I want to point out in the kitchen, take a look at the shelves. They're all encased. Have you guys really had any casualties on the road, lost any items?
You know, we were really fortunate because one of our good friends has been really involved in the tiny house movement. And right when we got the house, he was like, okay, I've been there, done that. Let me help you out. So he was really smart and reminded us to bolt everything down. So anything you look at is pretty well secured and bolted down.
Yeah. So if you want to look him up, Drew Odom of Tiny Revolution. He's awesome. He's very involved in the tiny house movement. So he was our right-hand man in getting the house ready for the road. So we spent about a month with him preparing for the travels that came afterwards. Since then, gosh, we went from Pennsylvania down to the Florida Keys, back up the East Coast to D.C. Now we're headed west, and we're going to be in Omaha for the next week and a half or so. Yep. We're going to pop over to Seward for 4th of July, but we got a bunch of events planned here in Omaha.
And you can take this out for yourself. And yes, people do climb up the stairs and check out the bedroom themselves. One of the coolest things that I've noticed is that because you've got this clearance space, even though it's narrow, you don't really feel claustrophobic. We've got 4 people in here right now. There's me, there's Stephanie, there's Tim, and there's Mike behind the camera. We've had no problems getting around, so it's very cool. What's the #1 challenge? Is it hard to drive?
It's really not that bad. It's comparable to a big travel trailer. But I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's an RV that's made out of wood. It's just really nice and homey. Yeah. So we have a lot of full-time RVers come in and say, wow, this is awesome. I would trade in mine any day for one of these. So it's been great. And people just go crazy. They act like it's Brad Pitt when they first see it. Oh,
it's better than Brad Pitt. It is better than Brad Pitt. Okay, Stephanie, I'm a girl. Girls are like, where are your clothes? Where are your shoes? And granted, we don't need all of these things in life. But how did you deal with that challenge of just getting rid of so much stuff?
Well, I think that's the hardest part about living a minimalist or sustainable lifestyle is that we're kind of trained and programmed since we're young to have so many things, and then we don't want to get rid of them because we paid for them and there's nostalgia attached to it. So it did take a while. It took many batches to Goodwill and going on Craigslist to get rid of it. But now I would say I have less than 25% than what I started with. And actually, up top, if you look there, we created a galvanized pipe closet. So that's both of our clothes up there, and then we have two crates where I have, my yoga clothes and some jeans and stuff. And then actually right there is where all of our shoes are at, is in that bin. And shoes were the hardest to get rid of.
Okay, you might think you can't have pets in a tiny house. I'm going to show you guys one more thing because I just got a wrap cue, but I can't miss this.
Let me get in here.
We have cockroaches in here, you guys. There's cockroaches. Let me tell you, Creative Animal Foundation, creativeanimal.org. Look up Creative Animal Foundation on Facebook or check out creativeanimal.org. You can see their tiny house at the zoo coming up on Sunday and then at the wildlife safari coming up on Monday. I'm going to hold a cockroach and send it back to Kelly and Mike.
The kids love them.
Oh, yeah, the kids love the cockroaches.
Tiny house and tiny pet, too. Thanks, Kayla.